We begin tonight with a major development. Gaza-based Palestinian terror group Hamas reportedly offering a prisoner swap agreement to Israel. It's the first reportedly serious offer made by Hamas in years. And if the two-phase deal is agreed to in its current form, Hamas would first release Israeli civilians Avera Mengistu and Hisham and then later the bodies of Israeli soldiers Oron, Shaul and Hadar Goldin. The problem is, as always, is the price. Here to discuss is Vice President of the Jerusalem Institute for Strategy and Security, Dr. Eran Lerman. Dr. Lerman, thank you so much for being with us now. Under the terms of Hamas's proposal, Israel would have to release all of its female Palestinian prisoners, plus 800 prisoners led by Marwan Barghouti, who's serving multiple life sentences for terror-related charges, and then some 300 terrorist bodies. How does this compare to the swap deal for Gilad Shalit in 2011?
Well, first of all, this is the offer. I'm not under the impression that Israel would accept it as such. This is the beginning of a negotiation. It is an indication that Hamas understands that this issue must be resolved if there is to be any move forward towards reconstruction in Gaza. They thought at the end of the fighting in May that they were in a position to dictate. This is not the case. Now, I don't believe that we are going to release people with blood on their hands, and I don't believe we are going to interfere in the internal dynamics in West Bank politics, which is what the release of Barghouti would imply. As to female prisoners and the exchange of bodies, etc., that's certainly within the realm of possibility. I think when it comes to people who may in the future constitute an active threat, the less I believe, and I hope and I believe that the lessons of the Shalit deal have been learned. People have paid with their lives for the Shalit deal in terms of the release of people who went back into murderous activity. This must not happen again. People can be released into Gaza where they are ineffectual, and people may be released who are no longer an active threat. But I believe the lessons have been learned, and there's clearly, in any case, a different proposition here when it comes to the release of bodies as distinct from the release of a captive soldier. As for the two civilians held, this is clearly an act of piracy of the worst kind. These are two people with apparently limited understanding of the consequences of their actions who are being held by Hamas for years. The sooner this is resolved, the better for the people of Gaza, because this is the key to the door for future reconstruction.
All right, so again, you mentioned Marwan Barghouti. He's a popular Palestinian political icon, and he has disagreements with President Abbas's Fatah party. But at the end of the day, Barghouti is himself still a member to that Fatah party. Could you expand on why Hamas is so keen to release him specifically?
Well, because he's probably the best known name. And should they be able to achieve his release, they would establish that they are the masters of the political game in the Palestinian context. This is a pretty, I would say, obvious ploy to position themselves as key players in the power game that may soon ensue over the legacy of Abu Mazen, of Mahmoud Abbas, who's well into his 80s, into the 13th or 14th year of a 4-year presidential term. So at the end of the day, Hamas is now seeking to establish their predominance in the game. I don't think it's a good idea for Israel to let them do it.
So in a short response, I mean, it's a hard and even insensitive question to ask, but it's necessary. Is this deal, such as it is, even remotely worth it? Is the deal as outlined worth the havoc that some of these prisoners might likely wreak upon their release? Current Hamas leader Yaya Sinwal, for example, having been released during the 2011 Shalit deal.
Well, quite clearly, this is the Hamas opening position. I still remember Sinwal playing with the magic number 1111. Israel is not obliged to accept the Hamas opening bid by any remove. And I believe that we have a complicated negotiation ahead of us. Hamas must be made to understand that the key to any development in Gaza is no longer in Qatari Louis Vuitton suitcases full of cash. It lies with the prospect of a workable deal on this question. And what is now being put forward by Hamas is their own opening bid. They should be, I believe, well aware that Israel would have a very different proposition to put on the table.
All right. Dr. Eran Lerman, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. And let's hope for good news.